Blog Talk Radio.
You are now tuned in to Talks with Sheba, with your host, Dr. Sheba Holly. We invite, excite, educate, and empower. Let's talk.
Welcome to Talks with Sheba, the place where real people give real answers on issues plaguing our community today. Hi, I'm your host, Dr. Sheba Holly. Thanks for stopping in tonight. We aim to invite, excite, educate, and empower. So let's talk. Let's talk about bringing in the new year. Every new year we promise ourselves it will be a better one. But what are we doing to make this dream a reality? What do we have in our life skills toolbox? The infamous Albert Einstein wisely defined our past actions as insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. This is definitely true when the results are continuous setbacks. Let's try something new. How about making a plan? Yes, a plan. I'm sure you have heard the saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. The key is to have tools. So, up next, we're going to figure out what we believe after these messages. And we're back. Tonight, we are bringing in the new year headstrong with author L Young. He has a host of titles, one of which is It's a Crazy World, Learn From It, and that's a wonderful series. But tonight, he's going to talk about beliefs. And before he comes on, I would like you to hear just a snapshot of what he brings to us.
Belief can be a feeling that X is worth doing, right? Because sometimes we're like, well, this is something I've not done before, but I'm probably going to get some type of benefit out of it. Belief can drive action. It can help us to move forward into a new direction. Belief is needed to sustain your energy to continue to move forward, to be able to continue to make forward progress. So sometimes we're working on something that might be difficult. Maybe we're trying to pursue a college degree, and it can be very difficult at times to pursue that college degree, but we need a certain level of energy to maintain that commitment in order to move forward. It can help individuals to take the initial steps toward a goal. Sometimes the hardest part of starting a new journey is what? Taking that first step. And once you get over that barrier in your mind that's saying, oh my gosh, I can't do this, and you're willing to take that first step, well, you've taken the first step, and then guess what? The second step is a little easier, and then the third step is a little easier. And then by taking those additional steps, we start to build up our confidence, which will also help us to develop our beliefs. And then keep individuals moving forward despite overwhelming odds, setbacks, and challenges. And I think that that's one of the biggest power related to belief. Because when we're feeling down and out, when things aren't going our way, that's when belief needs to kick in the most to help us to pick ourselves up and get ourselves going and heading towards something that we don't even know what's on the other side. And belief is a powerful tool. And there's a lot of other reasons that you're probably thinking about for you individually right now. So let's talk about some of the components of belief, but let me just back up. How many of you have ever thought about maybe some of the classifications or components of belief? Have you ever thought about belief having multiple layers? Have you ever thought about that? It can be a concept, a consideration, or a convenience. So it can be a concept. Is this considered to be true in terms of a concept? It can be a consideration. Is this true for me? Or it can be a convenience. Is this true for me at this moment? So concept, is this considered to be true? And then consideration, is this true for me? And then convenience, is this true for me at this moment?
Wow, that's pretty deep. L Young, welcome to Talks with Sheba. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, fantastic. This is a wonderful New Year's Eve, and we have to get ourselves together. So tell us more about this belief system.
Well, it's interesting that we're talking about belief on New Year's Eve, as a lot of folks are getting ready to implement their resolutions for the new year. So we've got to understand that belief is the cornerstone of success. And if you don't have it, then it's going to be very difficult for you to achieve your goals. And also, what we also need to remember is if we don't have belief, it's going to be also difficult for others to potentially support us in the things that we want to do.
That makes sense. Who wants to believe in you and you don't believe in yourself? So do you need belief to move forward?
Well, belief isn't required to move forward, because we can start moving forward even if we don't really believe something is true. But belief is really the driver to make us continue to move forward, because when we're doing something and we don't have a belief, if we don't fully believe in what we're doing, it can be very difficult to have that resilience, that perseverance that can continue to go forward. Because something that you want to achieve, if you go after it half-hearted, then you're not going to maximize your effort. You know, one of the things I always like to say is that folks are only going to move forward when they're ready to tee off. That is, they're ready to use their time, energy, and effort on fulfilling fantasies, or another word for fantasies is dreams. So if you're going to work towards something, why not put your full effort toward what you're trying to accomplish to make sure that you have the greatest opportunity for success?
That makes a lot of sense. So why do you think we fail to use it when we need it?
Well, there's a lot of reasons that might be. Part of it is there's a fear of taking that first step, because a lot of times the hardest part in a new journey is taking that first step. Other reasons that might hold individuals back from believing in themselves are they have doubts about themselves or what they're doing. They might not have anybody else's support. And support from others is nice, but we don't need anybody else's support to assist us in what we're doing, as long as we believe that what we're doing is something that's positive and is going to help us to get to that next level. You might not be confident in your own capabilities. So what is it that you want to do? Do I have the right skill set to do it? Well, if you don't have it right now, it's okay. Work towards it, and until you get those skills, but believe that you can do it as you're working through the process of learning how. You also don't have to worry about others' approval. Too many times we worry about getting somebody's approval about what we're doing. I want to go do this, but, are my parents going to agree with this? You know, or is my boyfriend or my girlfriend going to agree with this? Or do my counselors agree with the decisions that I'm making? Sometimes getting others' input is great, but ultimately we have to be accountable and responsible for our own decisions. And another issue is we haven't solidified our own belief that it's even possible. And the real big one that covers all of that, and I touched on it at the beginning, is the concept of fear that prevents someone from pursuing something that they believe in. So
does something have to occur in order for this feeling of belief to arouse in an individual?
Well, it doesn't have to be a specific event that happens, but oftentimes we start to develop a feeling that we want something more than what we have today. Sometimes folks will say someone has to hit rock bottom in order to start really moving forward. And I don't believe that you necessarily have to reach rock bottom, but if you have that desire that you want to move forward, then that's the first step on the path to getting to where you want to be. So first we've got to believe that we have something that is positive that we want to pursue, and that all begins with having a dream. So you've got to be willing to pursue your dream and give up some things sometimes in order to get what you want. Then you have to be able to develop a vision. So what's the vision for where you ultimately want to be? Not for where you are right now, not where you're going to be a week or two from now, but what is your long-term goal that you're working towards? Then we also want to make sure that we have individuals that are in our environment that are pursuing similar aspirations, because if you're not associating with folks that are trying to go anywhere, sometimes it can be even more difficult to motivate yourself in order to move forward. And, just a quick aside, one of the things I always like to say is I can't inspire anybody, I can't motivate anybody to do anything. I can inspire them to motivate themselves to achieve what they want. And then just a couple other things is once you start moving forward, you've got to maximize your belief by taking action to achieve your goals. Understand that you're capable of doing much more than you're capable of. Because a lot of times we don't even believe in ourselves. We start doing it and we do it half-heartedly, and we don't even believe that it's necessarily possible. And no matter what happens along the way, understand that even if you don't achieve the thing that you're going after, there's always value in the journey, because we can always learn something from what we're doing. And then just make sure that you just take a lot of chances, because chances create opportunities. Because if you aren't out there trying, it's very difficult sometimes to achieve success or to reach that next level.
Oh, gosh, you've said so many things just now. I'm like running after you. First of all, let's go back to being around people with the same mindset. That can be difficult for some, simply because a lot of times we're comfortable in our environment, we're comfortable with the people that we've been dealing with year after year after year. They almost become a part of us. How can we just break free of that? That's not easy. It's almost like you're saying to make new friends. And just imagine that first day of kindergarten when your parents dropped you off and you're like, oh, my goodness, look at all these people. Who do you choose? How do you choose? Do you do this on purpose with intent, or you just allow things to happen?
Well, it's all about a power of choice. We all have the power of choice to decide what we want to do and where we're going to spend our time. And if we're in a certain environment and we've been trying to do things and that environment is not productive, whether it's friends that are trying to hold us back by their comments and trying to keep you where they are, or you might even be in school and taking classes with instructors that don't teach in the particular style that works best for you to learn, you've got to make some adjustments. So you've got to be willing to make those changes to get what you want, because if you're not willing to make a change, then how can you expect for anything to be any different? And I think you referred to Albert Einstein's quote at the beginning of the show. You've got to make changes if you want a different result.
You do. But again, it's a hard habit to break, especially when you're choosing people to strategically place in your life and you hadn't been doing it correctly or to your best interest from kindergarten. I mean, it's just not easy. So that's one thing. And this
Before you move on, let me just jump in there real quick, because one of the hardest lessons that I've learned in the last few years as I've gone through some personal challenges and I'm coming out of those in recent times is that I had to say it's okay to divorce some of my friends. And there was one friend in particular that I had a conversation with, and I said, you know what, I'm at a different point in my life now. We've been friends for a long time. It's been fun. It's been great. I wish you all the best in your future, but unfortunately we're at different places right now, and we can no longer be friends. And that's not a bad thing. It's just it reflects personal growth, that if somebody is doing something and they're trying to hold you back in that old circle and not moving forward and trying to do something better than what they're doing today, then it might be time to break those connections.
Yeah, I totally agree. I believe you need to look inside yourself and just reflect on times and just moments that it just didn't work, and what does work, what that actually looks like. So, oh gosh, you just said so many things, like teeing off, and that's such a catchy little phrase. I really like that. Could you go back to the whole teeing off and break it down?
Yeah, so if we're wanting to pursue something, we've got to tee off, use our time, energy, and effort on fulfilling fantasies. So it's first a belief that we want to do something different, developing that vision that's going to allow us to move forward and pursue something greater than what we're doing today. And then the hard time many times is redirecting our time, our energy, and our effort towards achieving the things that we want, because you don't want to allow yourself to have that easy out. So there might be that great series on TV, and you're supposed to write a research paper that's due the next day, but you're like, you know what, I'm going to watch this TV show. I'm going to wait another hour or two to write the paper, and then I'll rush to get through the paper, and then I'll have a few hours of sleep, and then I'll go to work, and then I'll go to class and turn in that paper. Well, it's very difficult to maximize your opportunities for future success if you're not managing your time, energy, and effort properly.
Right. So what are just some key elements that you can touch on that you know that someone can take away as far as the whole belief system and how to develop it? Because a lot of times I know we're all guilty of sometime at some point in our lives to have not believed as we should in ourselves. So what are like a few good tips to just build that belief system up?
Well, just a handful of items that I would suggest is, one, work on your dream despite your fears. So even if you have a fear that you might not be able to do it anyway. Because, again, there's value in the journey even if the outcome isn't what might be expected. So go ahead and do it even though you have a fear, because fear a lot of times is not that negative thing that we often think about. I always like to refer to fear as, imagine you're about to do a performance, and you get those butterflies in your stomach, and you're like, oh, my gosh, I'm so nervous. I feel like I'm going to throw up before I go on. and I always like to say that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. You know why that's a good thing?
Why?
It's a good thing because you care.
Right.
When you stop caring, then that's when some of the other issues come in. The other thing that I like to offer is that you have to act as if there isn't a possibility of failure. You have to move forward like you're going to be a success. Because what I always like to say is, in my belief in myself is, I'm a superstar. Why would I tell myself anything less? And then probably, there's more that I can add, but probably the last thing that I'll offer right now is learn a lot from each effort. Every time you do something, what did you take away from that? And use that as a building block for all of your future success. And also look at your challenges and opportunities. What are some things that you didn't do so well that you can do better the next time based on the experiences?
Wonderful. And, there's probably people out there listening right now, like, why is he the expert? Could you touch on just how you came to this point where you were able to write these books? And when I say he's a prolific writer, everyone, this man gets it done. So could you just touch on that? Because people want to know, what brought him here? What was his journey?
Yeah, I've had a long journey. So my journey started many, many years ago. And as lots of folks go through challenges in life, I figured out how to continue to move forward. I mean, sometimes I was knocked down on my behind and even worse, but I continue to have perseverance and resilience. And just to touch on some of my challenges, and I write about this openly because vulnerability is not a bad thing. A lot of time we think about vulnerability as a weakness. No. Vulnerability is a strength that you're willing to share your challenges with others who can also benefit from the things that you've gone through. So some of my challenges were in 10th grade, I was directed to leave high school after failing 6 out of 7 classes. They told me to leave school. They didn't give me any options to try to help me. The only option was to leave. And I don't know if my mom was the smartest person or, maybe a little crazy. When she asked me the question, she said, it's your life, it's your choice. You make a decision right now. But that turned out to be one of the best things that she could have ever done because she put the accountability and responsibility on me.
Right.
And then the next year, I didn't turn it around. And until I wrote my book about my journey, the book I wrote, Above Expectations, my story, I didn't even realize that I was on the verge of failing my sophomore year again.
Oh, my goodness.
Then I started to turn it around by associating with others, trying some new things, so changed schools, started participating in some of the extracurricular activities, forensics, Future Business Leader of America. I ran track and field. ended up graduating on time, just barely, in the bottom 8% of my class. And so I made it through that. So you would think after I had learned a little bit and started to turn around, that would have been the end of my struggles. Well, no. Well, then I went on to 2 colleges, left due to academic performance, and it would have been easy for me to say, this doesn't work. But I realized something, that when I was working in a corporate environment, I was succeeding. So I had to make a connection between why am I succeeding in this corporate environment but not succeeding in school? Well, there were a couple of things. One, I understood the significance of the work that I was doing. 2, I was working with others who were pursuing higher goals. And this group that I was working with, thanks to the leadership at the time within this corporation, they were doing a master's degree program on site. And then at that moment, I said, you know what, why can't I do this too? And I went to the school that they were going to, had a conversation with the admissions office, and found out that I couldn't get in via the front door with my horrible academic performance. So I said, how do I get in? And they told me to take some classes non-degree. I took 3 classes. Well, actually, I took a few more than 3 classes. But I took a few classes non-degree and then applied for admission. And then I earned my place at a prestigious university at the American University. And, and that's sort of how I moved forward. And then the last thing I'll share with your audience is in March of this year, I was moments from committing suicide. And that was the lowest that I've ever been. And the journey that I've been on in the last 9 months has been about a process of renewal and growth and spirituality and faith. And I've become a stronger person because of the challenges that I've gone through, not in spite of. So collectively, going through all of these experiences, sharing them openly, and then going inside and being really reflective, which is sort of appropriate this time of year when we're talking about this on New Year's Eve. I went inside and I was very reflective, and then I wrote about my experiences, not just for myself, but I knew that by going through my challenges and struggles and understanding them, that I could help others also.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because a lot of times folks pick up books or they see others on television, authors, and they're thinking, did they just take a research class or did they actually experience this? Is this just some psychology fanatic? Is this real? Does he know what he's talking about? Has he been there? And I am just so happy you were able to share that with us. So for those that have difficulty with helping themselves, affirming themselves, what do you have? What do you do? Because there's always that negative voice, and some of us know how to control it, but then there's those of us that just don't know how to harness it and say, you know what, you're not going to control me.
Yeah, so one of the things that I would direct your audience to is to go to my website at slyoung.com, and on my website, on my blog page, I have a presentation that's Belief, a Powerful Component of Success. And if you watch the live version of that, I talk about a lot of things that we've talked about today. But specifically, what I suggest is that individuals develop a self-talk. And that's one of the things that I cover not only in the presentation, but I also have a book that's called Management Spotlight Belief. You can refer to that as well. And you start with a self-talk. So for me, when I was trying to make my way through the corporate world and understood that I needed to do more presentations, because I used to be really, really shy. And in order to get over that, what I did was I created a self-talk. So what I did, 3 times a day at a minimum, I stood in front of the mirror, looked myself in the eye, and had a conversation with myself. And what I said to myself at least 3 times a day, several times, direct conversation with myself, I said, I'm a clear, concise, competent communicator. I'm a clear, concise, competent communicator. I'm a clear, concise, competent communicator, and kept repeating that. And the value of doing that is I thought it, I spoke it, I heard it, I processed it.
Got it.
Over and over and over, I began the process of reprogramming.
Well, we have to retrain our thoughts.
Exactly.
Okay. Wow. So this is what I would like to do. I would like to take a break because we want to hear about the tools you can use to build your house. Why? Because it matters. We're now carpenters, and we're rebuilding ourselves to make ourselves better. So we'll hear about those tools after these messages. You're tuned in to Talks with Sheba, where we invite, excite, educate, and empower. And we're back. So let's talk about these tools that we need and how we can align ourselves, get our head strong.
Well, there's a few things that we can do, and so I think we can break this conversation down into two pieces. One will be sort of the guidance to achieve success, and then the other would be more some reflective things that we would need to think about. So in starting with some of the guidance to achieve success, we've got to believe in ourselves. I mean, that's where it starts. Even if nobody else believes in you, you've got to believe in yourself 100%. That is the critical starting point in order to drive yourself forward, because even if things are really, really bad, sometimes stuff can just get really bad. You're like, I just can't do this anymore. You got to continue to believe that it's possible. But the most important thing is you can't allow yourself an easy way out. We also have to remember that we always have the power of choice. So we have a choice in terms of what we're doing right now, whether we're spending our time enjoying this conversation or are we out drinking and just bringing in the new year. Not that that's a bad thing at this time of year, because it's a normal thing to do, but just for example, there's things that we can do. So you've got to be able to convince yourself that you're working towards something and it's possible to be able to achieve it, and then use those self-talks that we talked about earlier to keep yourself motivated. You got to be resilient. And that's the thing that is critical for success, because we can start to move forward towards where we want to go, and then sometimes we get a setback and we're like, oh, and then you try again and you get another setback and you're like, oh, let me walk away. Well, if you walk away and you've been working on something for so long, months, years, and it just didn't work, and then you walk away, I think it was Ross Perot that had a quote that said, sometimes folks give up on the 1-yard line when they're moments from success, about to score that winning touchdown, and then they walk away.
Right.
And then just being persistent, because being able to be persistent demonstrates your desire to achieve your goal and your commitment. So those are probably the 4 big tools that I would provide in terms of achieving success.
Okay, so when you think about just decision-making, because we touched on just deciding who to choose as friends, deciding whether or not we're going to take action, what perspectives are available to us to help us develop who we are? Well,
I like to break that down into 3 main questions. Because when we're truly evaluating and being honest with ourselves, we need to look at more than just the quick, what do I think about this? Because that's the easy way. But we should really take a step back and go a little bit deeper. So there's 3 things that I think that we should consider. We should consider our mental, emotional, and spiritual perspectives. So from a mental perspective, we've got to think about the decisions that are made based on the thoughts that we're thinking about right now. So what are these things, and how is it going to impact our choices as we move forward? And sometimes we get into trouble with our mental perspective because we overthink it, we analyze too much, or sometimes we just convince ourselves that it's not possible.
Right.
The second piece is the emotional side. And this is where we have choices that are made just on our emotions and those affecting feelings that we have that can sometimes cause us to negatively react or not maximize our performance because we're allowing that surge that happens sometimes when we're nervous and we're about to do something that we haven't done before to sort of overwhelm us. So we have to be able to control that. But the biggest thing that I have found that has helped me so much in the last few years when I've gone through some really, really turbulent times is my spiritual perspective. Because life's direction a lot of times is related to a lot of things that we do every day, just trying to make our ends meet. But we've got to really think about that spiritual connection, because that spiritual connection is also driven by what our core beliefs are. And so we've got to use our core beliefs to help us to maximize our opportunities, to make sure that our mental and emotional perspectives don't override the things that we know that we really should be doing. If we're honest, those feelings that we have really, really deep inside, our core beliefs, because you know when you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. But if we take that a step further and allow our spirit to drive us. You know, my mom always used to say when I was younger, she always used to say, you know what, I'm not going to do anything until the spirit moves me.
Right,
and I didn't
right.
understand that until now. And so now when I get these thoughts, I don't think of them as random thoughts. I'm like, if I think about something and I'm not actively thinking about it, I write it down so that I can take action on it, or at least think about it later so that I don't lose it, because there's so much about this world and that we don't understand, and sometimes we get those little whispers, and maybe they're little angel whispers that are giving us direction, because I know a lot of folks have had those moments when they said, you know what, I thought about that the other day. I wish I would have done it.
Right.
Well, maybe after this conversation you might think about it a little differently.
Right. So, you know what I've struggled with personally, my core beliefs and feeling like, are they really what I believe? And sometimes they get a little fluid. I mean, it's crazy. It's like I start feeling like I don't know who I am, what I stand for anymore, and then I start thinking, if I'm feeling that way, so conflicted inside, what are others thinking about me? How is this manifesting in, like, the physical world out, how is it just going into the universe?
Well, I understand that. I think we all have those struggles from time to time, right? And so what I always like to say is that our core beliefs aren't situational. Okay. Because if we truly, truly believe something, it's not going to alter based on the situation. So a lot of times individuals will use a convenience of a situation to justify any action or behavior that doesn't align with what they supposedly believe, right? And so if that's the approach that you take, that you've got to question your core beliefs. But that doesn't mean that your core beliefs can't change over time. So what sometimes happens is that we learn things that are different through new discoveries, or sometimes we believe things that we thought were right, and we find out that it really wasn't the right thing. So we have to adjust our beliefs. And so those are moments that happen periodically. They don't happen as frequently. And so when we have those beliefs, so what our opinions are, opinions change. They're more fluid. Our opinions can change from one moment to the next. But core beliefs represent who we really are. And if we're really true to ourselves and what we truly believe, then those don't change that quickly.
Okay, so it's more so I need to sit down and reflect on what are my true beliefs and what would I give up and how would I stand for them, basically.
Yeah, because sometimes we have tough decisions, and I've faced some tough decisions, in workplaces where I know folks are doing things that are very, very questionable or are downright unethical. So what my core beliefs are is that if somebody asks me to do something that I don't believe in, I'm not going to do it. Right. Even if that means that I'm going to lose my job, I'm not going to do it. Because when we think about it in that way, we have to think about what we were talking about earlier. Is it a concept? So do I believe that if someone is doing something unethical, that I'm not going to be a part of it?
Right.
Is it a consideration? So if someone's doing ethical, will I or will I not get involved? But a lot of times when we think about these things, it's more a convenience because we'll do things that are convenient for us at that particular moment, which doesn't necessarily reflect back to our core beliefs. So if your decisions are made out of convenience and not based on your core beliefs, then you really have to question what your core beliefs really are.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put you on hold, not literally on hold, but we have a question. So we're going to take a caller, and that caller is 6156. You are on live with Talks with Sheba. L Young is on the line.
Yes, hi. This is Laura Bowman. Hi, Dr. Sheba.
Hi, how are you?
I'm quite fine. It's not so much a question. It's just, I think, a comment on what was said in terms of when you're working with creative ideas and things come through, and the aspect of waiting for spirit to come and confirm. I'm a strong believer in that, and it's a proper balance because what I've been taught is that we have to be careful, even though if God sends us something, we have to be careful not to get in front of him, so he'll let you know what the timing is. But at the same time, we wouldn't be so foolish, as Mr. Young was saying, as not to at least note it so you have it. You have it, and it's like in a holding pattern, and then all of a sudden everything comes together. I've been enjoying hearing so many of his comments and in the aspect of believing in oneself, because one of the things that I suffer from is I can do something and do it well and do it consistently, and then all of a sudden it just stops, and I can't even see when I'm doing it. All of a sudden something will happen, and I'll find myself pulling back from that particular thing and not even knowing I'm doing it. Sometimes there's certain things I can look at and say, okay, I'll stop myself, but sometimes it just comes on you. And I'm wondering if there's anything that you can really do about that, because it's self-conscious. So how can you make it more conscious so you can be more aware when you're stepping into that danger zone?
Hey, Laura, thank you for your comments. Very, very, very good comments. What I'll tell you is, and I'll start with a little bit of example. Right before Maya Angelou died, I actually sent her a tweet, and I said, how do I allow that author in me to fully emerge? And one of her final quotes, and I don't know if it was directed at me or not, but I'll take that it was, but her final quote, tweet that she sent out was, listen to yourself, and in that quietude, you might hear the voice of God. So when we stop over-processing and allow things to happen and stop trying to control everything, then I think we open ourselves up to a greater plane of existence. And what I've learned to do is stop trying to force things and make it happen necessarily on my time, but in the time that it's supposed to happen on God's time. In terms of, so now there's articles that I start to write, and I'm like, I want to write this now, but something in me says it isn't the right time. And then I could put the article away for months, and then I'll be walking along, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, I need to go finish that article. And then I go back and do it, and then it flows.
I understand what you're saying, too, because I was part of a writers group, and a really, really good piece came through. And at the end of the year, you know, we put our pieces up. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put this, because I act too, I'm going to put this piece up and whatever. The piece went up and got up, but there are a whole lot of other things that happened around it that didn't click. You know what I mean? It's like you fit something and you force it in there and it gets in there, but it's not right. And at the same time, someone had asked me to be in a place that was very, very important about molestation, and the role was phenomenal. But I couldn't direct my piece, be in my piece, and be in theirs. So I stepped out of it. Now theirs is getting ready to move on. It's going on tour. And it's because I decided that piece was supposed to go up at that time, and I don't think it was. I wasn't listening. So what you're saying is helpful. Yes.
You know, it's interesting. I just want to add to that is one of the things that I never thought that I would do is teaching in jail. And after I wrote my inspirational series, It's a Crazy World, Learn From It, my friends and family who read the book, some of them said to me, you know what, this is the kind of thing that would work well in the jail environment as some of these individuals are trying to rediscover themselves. Because sometimes when you go to folks with the Bible or religion, they shy away because you're using that G word, which shouldn't be a bad thing. But by bringing those perspectives in there and by listening to others who brought something to me, it took me a moment to process it until that moment when I was directed to go there. And let me just sort of step away for just a moment. I want to tell you one other thing that's very, very interesting that will sort of confirm what I'm telling to you. So the day that I went to the jail to do to have a conversation with the person who manages there, I wasn't planning on going into a housing unit. And the woman that was walking me around, she said, her name was Kristen Kane, and she said to me, would you like to go to a housing unit? And I said, sure, on the outside. On the inside, I was like, no, I'm not ready. So I thought we were going to go downstairs and just look into a housing unit because I wasn't mentally prepared to go in that day. So we get down to the housing unit, and we get to the door, and I'm looking in from the outside, and I'm thinking, okay, I see what it looks like. She swipes her card, and we go in between doors. And then I'm like, okay, well, this is what I thought it would look like. I've seen this on Locked Up.
And can we go now?
And then the next thing that happened is she swiped another door, and then we went in. And then all of a sudden I walked into this environment, and my mental perspective was, oh, my gosh, I'm in this environment with all these inmates. And looking at them in those uniforms changes your perspective. But here's the amazing thing that happened. I walked literally 3 steps, and then all of a sudden I heard, Stacy. And I'm like, ain't nobody in here calling me because nobody know me in here. And then I heard, Stacy. And then I went, hold on. You know how you do that slow head turn? And you're like, who's calling me? And this guy jumped up and said, hey, it's so-and-so from so-and-so. And I said, oh. He goes, hey, what's up with you? And I said, hey, how are you? I wasn't going to ask him what was up with him. But the message is I was apprehensive about teaching in the jail environment. And in seconds of being in that environment, I saw someone who I used to run with almost 25 years earlier. And that confirmed for me that that's where I was supposed to be.
Absolutely. Because besides everything else, besides him opening the door to make it easier for you to walk in, laying a groundwork for you, it's that thought that says, okay, we ran together. I'm here and he's there. Why? And what can we exchange to assist each other, but assist him also, because it's not an accident. It is not an accident, and you have no plan to do that. It's perfect. Well, thank you so much. I don't want to take up much of your time. I'll keep listening. Thank you.
Thank you for calling in. We really appreciate your time, spending it with us.
And if you wouldn't mind, I think at this point I would like to do a few things, if you wouldn't mind. I'd like to provide a couple of quotes to your audience, and then I want to make an announcement also. So the first quote that I'll give to your audience is from my inspirational series, and it's called Do It For You. Do it for you even though others may question it. Do it for you while others don't understand it. Do it for you while others may challenge it. Do it for you even if you don't completely believe it's possible. Do it for you because positive change starts with you. And then the other quote that I would offer is called Pursue Unrestricted, Sustained Happiness. Push. Push yourself to complete a task. Push yourself beyond your past. Push yourself to explore many doors. Push yourself to achieve even more. Push yourself to get a different view. Push yourself to become your best you. And with that said, I want to make an announcement because we're talking about being headstrong going into New Year. doing it for you and pushing forward. Well, I'm pushing forward too. And as of today, I, on this show, will announce out to everyone that I am starting my new business at midnight tonight that's called Beyond SPRH, and the website is Beyond, BEYOND, SPRH.com. And if you go check out my website, in the upper right-hand corner, I've put a gift up to any of the listeners out there tonight that they can download a copy of a PDF, which I've provided about 20 quotes from my inspirational series. The other thing that I would offer to your audience is to check out my personal website at SLYoung.com. I have my blog, I have videos, I have information about my nonprofit, Saving Our Communities at Risk through Educational Services. The website for that is SOCARTES.org. And there's so much more there. Doing some great things to give back to the community, and I'm looking to do a lot more in 2015, and we're almost there.
Oh, fantastic. And we couldn't bring it in with nothing better than quotes that would just uplift us and affirm us. So I just want to say, thanks for hanging out with us. We would like to thank L Young for his positive thoughts, helping us get headstrong in 2015. If you have any questions or comments, email us at sheba@talkswithsheba.tv or call 866-671-4344. Follow me on Twitter at Sheba Holly at TalksWithSheba. Instagram me, Dr. Sheba Holly. Or follow me on the Talks with Sheba blog talk page. Bottom line, I want to hear from you. And remember, work like you don't need the money, love like you've never been hurt, and dance like nobody's looking. We'll talk later.
Talks with Sheba. Be empowered.